In the dark space above Earth, a ship floated silently, hidden behind the shadow of the moon. Inside that ship, loud laughter echoed. Alien warrior women strong, proud, and fearless gathered around a large screen. They watched old Earth footage and shook their heads, laughing hard. "Look at them," said Commander Veltra, leader of the squad. Soft men, crying in movies, talking about love, scared of insects. Another warrior shouted, "They can't even lift simple weapons." The whole room burst into laughter again. These aliens were born for war on their planet. Only the strongest females ruled. Men didn't fight, didn't lead, and were kept away from power. So when they discovered Earth, they expected the same, but Earth confused them. Men there had power, emotions, and something else they couldn't understand well. Still, they only saw weakness in the videos. "We will visit Earth," Veltra announced, her voice sharp. "We will land, walk among them, and show them what true warriors look like." They all cheered, proud and sure of their strength. But what they didn't know, someone on Earth was listening, far below, in a quiet, forgotten room under an old military base. A red light blinked. An old AI system came to life. Triggered by the alien signal, the screen lit up with their mocking message, and one man stood there watching, silent and still. His name was Rain, a former soldier. Now living alone in the mountains, no one remembered him, and that's how he liked it. But the AI remembered. Rain didn't blink as the alien women laughed at his kind. He simply whispered, "They shouldn't have done that." The next day, the alien ship entered Earth's sky, invisible to all radar. They landed in a quiet forest near a small town. No one saw them. No alarms were raised. They stepped out, shining in silver armor, weapons ready, proud and amused. They walked into town with strange looks on their faces. People stared at them, confused but not scared. Some even took photos. Thinking it was a movie shoot, they spotted a group of young men sitting near a coffee shop. One alien warrior walked up and said, "Where are your leaders?" The men laughed nervously and said, "At work, I guess." The alien shook her head, unimpressed. One man stood up and said, "You look like superheroes." The alien replied, "We are more than that." Then she pushed him gently, and he fell. Shocked and embarrassed, the aliens laughed again. Louder this time. "Is this the best Earth has to offer?" One said, "This is not a challenge." Another replied, but then one of them stopped laughing. She looked to the side and saw a man standing alone, watching them. Rain, dressed in black, stood with a calm face and sharp eyes. He had no phone, no bag, no fear, just stillness. The warrior walked over to him and said, "Do you wish to bow or be thrown?" Rain didn't answer. He just looked at her, then said one word, "Leave." The others turned and started laughing again. "He gives orders now," they joked. The warrior stepped forward to push him too, just like the others. But something changed. In one blink, Rain grabbed her wrist and twisted. The warrior hit the ground, weapon flying from her hand. The street went silent. Rain dropped her hand and stepped back. "Last warning," he said, calm as ever.
Oh.
The other warriors rushed forward, but Veltra raised her hand. "Wait," she said. Her eyes locked on Rain. Something in him was different, something cold and dangerous. She scanned him. No advanced armor, no alien tech, just human, but her inner sense screamed, "This one is not like the others." Later that night, back on their ship, the warriors talked in whispers. He moved like a ghost. One said, "He touched her, and she fell like metal." Another added, "Commander Veltra stood silent, watching Earth from the window." Then she said softly, "He is alone, but he is not weak. They came to mock, to laugh, to dominate." But something now lived in their minds, doubt, and far below, Rain walked back into the woods. No one followed. No one stopped him. But the message was clear. Earth was watching too. Asterisk, the night was quiet. Too quiet for Earth. No dogs barking, no wind blowing, just still air. As if the world was holding its breath, in the nearby forest, the alien warriors gathered again. Commander Valtra stood over a glowing map, her eyes sharp and unreadable. This area is weak. No military, no defense. Perfect for observation, she said. The others nodded, still smiling, still thinking of Earth as a joke. But inside her heart, something had shifted, that man Rain was still in her mind. He's just one, her second-in-command said. An exception, Valtra didn't respond. She didn't like exceptions. The plan was simple. Test Earths. Response, gather information, leave. They split into groups, walking through the small town like shadows. Their armor cloaked them in night-colored light to the human eye. They looked like moving shadows or tricks of the light. One group entered. A gas station. The human clerk looked up, confused. Halloween cosplay. He joked. The lead warrior stepped forward and asked, "Where is your war center?" The clerk laughed. "War center? You mean the army? Maybe. 2 hours away." She stared at him, blinked and left. No challenge, no resistance, just confusion. And comedy, another group tried the police station, only to sleepy officers inside. Drinking coffee, the warriors left without even talking. "This is worse than we thought," one muttered, but far away from town in the deep woods. One alien. Scout picked up a strange signal. It was cold, sharp. Like a whisper inside her helmet, she stopped, turned around, and saw. Nothing, then. Her visor glitched. Just for a second, she blinked and spoke. "Control. I think I've been seen." No reply, just static. The next morning, she didn't return. Valtra called an emergency meet. One of them was missing. No. Signs of attack, the second-in-command man said. She just disappeared. Valtra stared at the empty chair. She was trained, fast, smart. She wouldn't vanish. A moment of silence. Then Valtra gave the order. "Send 2 more. Track her last signal." They moved out before sunrise. Weapons ready, sensors hot, but in the woods, they found something that made their blood run. Cold. A piece of alien armor, burnt at the edge. No body, no blood, just silence. Then one whispered, "What's that on the tree?" They walked over, and scratched into the bark were 3 letters. Run. No weapons could have carved it like that, not without melting the tree. It was a message, not just to the aliens, but to anyone who followed. Valtra saw the video footage. Later that night, she watched the letters again and again, and suddenly, she didn't feel like laughing anymore. "We underestimated them," she said quietly. But no one spoke. The mood on the ship had changed. They still outnumbered humans, still had better weapons. But they had no idea who Rain was or how he moved. Back in town, Rain sat in a quiet cafe. Drinking tea, he looked out the window, watching the shadows move. He knew they were there. Watching him too, he could feel it. An old man walked past and said, "Strange week, a son?" Rain nodded. "Something's coming." The old man chuckled and walked away. But Rain's eyes didn't move from the trees. Night fell again. 2 alien warriors stood on guard outside their hidden camp. One turned to the other and whispered, "You hear that?" The other one listened, branches moving, leaves falling, wind whispering. Then snap. Something behind them. They turned fast, weapons up. But there was nothing. Just a single stone on the ground, and next to it, the same. Word carved in dirt. "Run." One warrior trembled slightly. "These humans. They don't fight like we do." The other nodded slowly. "They don't fight loud. They fight quiet." Inside the command ship, Valtra was alone in her chamber. She replayed footage from their first meeting with Rain, paused it at the moment. He said leave, zoomed in on his face. Not angry, not afraid, just calm, like he had seen war. And survived worse. She leaned back, thinking deeply. For the first time in her life, she whispered something she never expected to say. Maybe? We made a mistake. And outside, hidden in the shadows, Rain smiled faintly, because he knew. The first contact had been made, and they had already lost the first round. Long before the stars laughed at Earth, the Earth had prepared, not for glory, not for conquest, but for survival. In a hidden file, buried deep inside a forgotten server. A project name blinked on screen for the first time in years. Project Black Echo. It was a human experiment, erased from records, denied by every government. A project meant to build soldiers without fear, pain, or weakness. But it failed door, so the world believed. Inside that failure, Rain was born. Back on the alien ship, Commander Voltra stood over her data screen. No trace of the scout. No heat signals, no blood, nothing. Her officer said Voltra didn't respond. She just stared at one image Rain's face, paused from their first contact. Her warrior instincts whispered something no data could confirm. He was dangerous, not just strong, not just skilled. Something else lived inside him. Send our best fighters, she said at last, not to attack. Just to test. Later that night, 2 elite alien warriors landed near the forest edge. Their mission was simply observe the human. Follow him, report back, but Rain already knew. He stood at the riverbank, hands behind his back, watching the water. The warrior stayed hidden in the trees, whispering softly, "He's alone." One said, "No weapons," said the other. "Approach." Yes, they stepped forward, leaves crunching softly under their boots. Rain didn't turn, he just spoke, calm and quiet. 2 steps closer, and you won't go home. The warriors froze. He had never turned around, never looked at them. Yet he knew. One of them laughed. "We're not like the last ones." Rain turned his head slightly. "I noticed," he said. The last one screamed, and then he moved. Not fast, faster than fast, like the forest bent around him, in 3 blinks. Both warriors were on the ground, one unconscious, the other choking on fear. Rain crouched beside her, looking into her eyes. "Tell your commander," he whispered. This was me being kind. Then he vanished into the trees. The warrior crawled back to the ship, shaking. Voltra rushed too. Her side, what happened? He wasn't human, the warrior said. He saw us before we saw him. He touched us and we fell. Voltra stared at her. "He didn't kill you." "No," she whispered. "He spared us like we were." Children, meanwhile, in a secret location under Earth's surface. The old AI system continued waking up. Project Black Echo had many subjects, but only one completed the full phase. Rain, enhanced nerves, rebuilt muscle memory, silent reflexes. And something more, he was trained to disappear. And now he had returned, far away. Rain entered a small cabin, silent and dark. He opened a steel box under the floorboards. Inside, old dog tags, a burned photo, a broken watch, and a steel disc marked Echo 1. He closed the box, sat in the corner, and whispered. They came here to laugh. A soft hum filled the room as old tech powered up. But now, they're listening. Back on the alien ship, Voltra looked at her officers. This human. This Rain, she said. We treated him like prey. And one asked. She turned slowly and whispered, we might be standing in the den of a silent predator. She paused. Recall all ground teams, she ordered. Until we understand what we're facing, no one moves alone, but it was already. Too late, the hunters had become the hunted, and the Earth had shown its first weapon. Not a missile, not a machine, but a man. A man they should never have mocked. Asterisk, the ship no longer felt like a victory march. It felt like a tomb with engines. The air was thick, not with smoke, but with silence. The kind of silence that comes before something terrible. Commander Voltra walked the halls, armor cold against her skin. Her warriors stood still, eyes watching. Every shadow, every corner, they no longer laughed. They whispered, "He moves like a shadow." He knew our names. He let us live. Fear wasn't a word they used, but now, they didn't have a choice. Voltra entered the central war room. A red hologram of Earth spun slowly in the air. One word flashed across the screen again and again. Unidentified human threat. Echo 1. "He's not just a soldier," Voltra said, voice sharp but low. "He's something else, something trained to hunt." Her second-in-command stared at the data. There's no heat trail, no digital trace, no heartbeat on scan. Voltra turned her eyes slowly. "He's not hiding from us," she said. "He's letting us feel him." That night, something strange happened. Two warriors guarding the north post reported a noise like footsteps in the fog, but never close. When backup arrived, they were gone. No struggle, no blood, only their weapons lay gently on the ground, crossed like a symbol, above them on a wall. Someone had written in dust, "Told you to leave." One warrior panicked and tried to leave the ship. She was stopped, trembling, "Commander, this planet is cursed," she cried. Voltra didn't speak, because in her heart she was starting to believe it too. Back in the forest, Rain stood barefoot on a rock. As closed, the wind moved through. The trees like whispers. He listened to it like it was speaking to him. Because it was, the earth remembered, and so did he, in another part of the forest. 3 elite alien scouts activated their camo suits, invisible, silent, armed with energy blades. Their mission, trap Rain, study him, capture him alive. They never saw him. He didn't strike them. He simply let them walk in circles for hours. Their maps broke, their suits failed. One by one, they dropped to their knees. Crying, confused, lost, above them. In the branches, Rain watched. He never smiled, never spoke. He simply whispered to the forest. They came with pride. The wind answered back. But now they kneel on the alien ship. Paranoia spread like fire. Lights flickered, systems glitched. Warriors jumped at shadows, afraid of the quiet more than the noise. Voltra stared at her reflection in the steel wall. Her armor still shone, but her face did not. She looked uncertain. "He's just one," the tech officer said, trying to breathe normal. Voltra snapped back. "He is Earth's answer to us," she said. "Not made to impress, made to end things." A new order was given. No one leaves the ship alone, pairs only, weapons ready, eyes sharp, but even in groups, they felt it. The sensation of being hunted, not with teeth, but with silence, back inside his hidden cabin. Rain sat before the open box of Project Black Echo. The disk now glowed faint blue. The AI voice spoke, quiet and slow. "Threat level confirmed. Engage next protocol." Rain said nothing. He simply nodded once across the forest. The earth seemed to breathe. Branches bent without wind. Animals grew quiet. Even the clouds paused, like the planet itself was watching. And far above, on the alien ship, Voltra, finally, whispered to herself, "This is not a mission anymore. This is a mistake." Because mocking a world is easy until the world wakes up and sends its ghosts to remind you why silence can be the loudest warning of all. The message arrived without sound. Just a symbol etched into the side of the alien ship with perfect precision. No alarms were triggered. No one saw who did it. A single mark, glowing faint blue. 2 lines crossing, a circle in between. Ancient Earth code, it meant. Challenge. Voltra stared at it, silent, her jaw locked tight. She had seen that symbol in old human war texts used by fighters who gave no second warning. Is this a trap? Her second-in-command asked. Valtra shook her head slowly. No, she whispered. It's an invitation. The coordinates were burned into their ship's hull, an old clearing in the forest. Wide and open, no hiding spots, no high ground. Just earth and sky. That night, she walked there alone. No soldiers, no drones. No shields, only her armor, her blade, and the weight of everything she'd misjudged. Rain was already there, sitting on a fallen tree, as if he had been waiting forever. No weapons in sight, no armor, no fear. Valtra approached slowly, each step. Heavier than the last, he didn't move, didn't look up. Why me? She asked. Rain finally raised his eyes. Because you led them here, he said calmly. And now? You'll carry them back. She drew her blade, smooth and fast. It hummed with alien energy, deadly and precise. Rain stood slowly, hands empty. But his eyes were sharp enough to cut through steel. You're not like the others. Valtra said, circling him. You could have killed us all by now. Rain nodded once. But that wouldn't teach you anything. Then it began. No signal, no sound. She moved first, blade flashing like lightning. Rain ducked under the strike, slid sideways, and touched her wrist. Not hard, just enough. She stumbled, confused. His movements weren't about power, they were about control. He used her speed. Against her, her strength as her weakness. The fight was beautiful and brutal. Like poetry written in violence, she tried every trick, every angle, every warrior technique. He countered them all. Not with rage, but with rhythm. Minutes passed like hours. Their breath fogged the cold night air. Sweat dripped from her brow. Rain hadn't broken a sweat. And then he stopped, just stood there, breathing slow. Valtra froze, blade pointed at his heart. But he didn't flinch. You came to laugh? Rain said softly. You mocked what you didn't understand. Valtra's hand trembled. Not from fear of death, but from the truth in his words. I was made for war, she said, her voice cracking. Rain took a step closer. No, he whispered. You were trained for it. But I was forged in it. She dropped her blade. It hit the ground with a soft thud, and in that moment, her pride fell with it. The duel was over, not because someone lost, but because someone understood. Rain turned and walked back toward the trees as he vanished into the dark he left behind. One sentence, now you've seen the strength you mocked. Valtra fell to her knees. Staring at the dirt, she had come to prove her kind superior. But now, she would return as a witness to something Earth never needed to shout. Something that didn't shine, didn't roar, but stood tall in silence. The kind of strength that doesn't need to win because it never needed to prove anything. At all *, the warrior ship was no longer alive with sound. No drills, no laughter, no war chants, only silence walked its halls. Commander Valtra returned through the main gate alone. No wounds on her body, but her steps were slow, like someone carrying more than just armor. Every warrior stood at attention, waiting to hear how the duel ended, waiting to hear how Earth was finally broken. But Valtra said only one thing: he let me live. A cold wave passed through the room. Some lowered their eyes, others clenched their fists. None spoke. She placed her weapon on the command table. I lost, she said, and then added quietly. And that loss saved me. Her second in command stepped forward, confused. You were stronger, faster, trained from birth. How? Valtra turned to her with eyes that no longer held pride, because I've only seen war. She whispered, he was born inside it. The Council of Warriors met behind closed doors. They reviewed every report, every battle log, every signal. But none of it made sense. One man against trained alien elite. No tech, No army, just presence. The numbers said he should have died. The truth said otherwise. A junior warrior stood up, nervous. What if we're not the top species? She asked. The room grew tense. Impossible. One snapped. Waltra raised her hand. Not impossible, she said. Just finally. Visible meanwhile, on Earth, Rain sat at the edge of a cliff, looking over the valley where their ship still hovered. He didn't smile. He didn't prepare. He simply watched, behind him. A faint beep sounded. The eye system in his cabin had completed a scan. One line blinked on the screen. Alien command. Behavioral shift detected. Back on. The ship, Valtra, stood before her army. I was wrong, she said, her voice strong again. Earth isn't weak. It's quiet. And we mistook that quiet for fear. She looked at them one by one. I saw something in him. She continued. Not hate, not rage, but control. The kind that doesn't need war to prove power. One warrior stepped forward, uncertain. What do we do now? Valtra looked up at the Earth on the screen. First, she said, we stop laughing. Then, we listen. They sent a new message down to Earth. This time, not a challenge. Not a threat, just one short line. We're ready to learn. Rain read it from a handheld device in the woods. He tilted his head, thinking. Then he picked up a small stone, carved something into it, and placed it on the forest trail where he knew they'd find it. The stone said, start by walking, not marching, back on the ship. Waltra read the message, and for the first time, she smiled. Not because she won, but because she had finally understood. Power isn't always loud. It doesn't always shine. Or roar. Sometimes it waits, sometimes it watches, and when needed, teaches. Now the shift had begun, not in weapons, not in technology, but in respect, from mocking to understanding, from pride to learning, and all because of one human who said almost nothing but spoke louder than any war ever could. The stars were quiet now, not because the war ended, but because something far greater had begun. Above Earth, the alien ship hovered one last time. No weapons charged, no prideful speeches, just silence. A respectful silence they had never shown. Before, inside the war room, Commander Valtra placed her battle helmet on the ground. She looked around at her warriors not as a commander, but as a student. I came to break a planet, she said, but the planet broke my belief instead. She turned to the central console and began recording her final report. A message not just for her world, but for all who would ever think Earth was soft, weak, easy. She started with the words, they said Earth was laughable, until it stood. Without speaking, back in the forest, Rain walked among the trees. Alone again, but not forgotten, the leaves above whispered in the wind. Not to him. About him, a new kind of story began to spread slow. Powerful alien scouts who once mocked him now stood guard over the forest trail. Not as watchers, but as students. They followed his steps, listened to the wind, touched the soil, trying to feel what he felt, but he was already gone. Some say he returned to the mountains. Others claim he disappeared into the earth itself. A few whisper he never existed, just a ghost born when Earth was threatened. But all of them agree on one thing, that he changed them. Not with force, but with proof. He showed them that strength can be still. That power doesn't need noise. And that mercy, when shown by someone who could destroy UEs, the greatest warning of all. Back on the alien homeworld, Valtra stood. Before the high circle, warrior leaders from across the galaxy listened as she spoke. She showed no fear, no shame, only truth. We went to Earth, expecting weakness. She said, but we met something else, something calm, unstoppable. And terrifying in its silence, one elder asked, what weapon did they use? Waltra looked them in the eyes and replied, none. They were the weapon, since then. No fleet has dared approach Earth, not out of fear, but out of respect, because Earth doesn't send armies. It doesn't beg, it doesn't explain. It waits, it watches, and if needed, it sends one man, now, across alien worlds. Children hear a new bedtime tale of a man without armor, without noise, who stood alone and made an army kneel. Some call him legend, some call him ghost, but those who saw him, they only call him Rain.